Welcome everyone to the Golden Rule of Selling podcast with Katie Mullen. I'm so happy you're here. Today, I'm really excited because we have an awesome guest. Her name is Julie Hansen, and I have been following her for a while on LinkedIn. She is really the absolute queen and the expert on virtual meetings and how to do it effectively and how to look good on camera. So thank you for being here, Julie.
Oh, my pleasure, Katie. I don't know about queen, but I'll take it, right?
Yes, that's right. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what you do.
Sure. So I've been in sales all my life, and I also worked as an actor. So I quickly saw the advantages that I could learn and apply from the world of acting to sales, especially in terms of customer-facing events and conversations and presentations. And so turn that into a business where I work with salespeople on improving their presentations, demos, conversations to be more engaging and compelling. And of course, when all this struck last spring and everyone went, what are we going to do? We can only connect virtually, and that means on camera. I realized that nobody really had the skills to necessarily do that. In fact, I didn't have those skills when I was acting, because most actors, you start out on stage in live theater, much like a face-to-face salesperson. And when I went to my first audition on film, I got in front of the camera and I was like, what? I just froze. I couldn't think of a word that I was supposed to say. And of course, I did not get the part. But I did take some on-camera acting classes. And that's what actors do. Like, you learn the techniques to fit the medium. And so I realized that there's this whole world of business people, salespeople in particular, that they don't have the techniques, and so they feel uncomfortable and awkward, of course, because it's unnatural. And I developed a program to help them, navigate this new world, as it were. So I developed the Selling on Camera Masterclass, and training and coaching around that. So that's what I do, and it's really been great to kind of be part of this evolution and help people, get more confident and be more successful in this world.
Right. Well, I think that's what a great business to be in. That worked out well for you to get that. That's great. And I do think a lot of people, I know for me, when I first started trying to use this medium, it was a lot about trying to find the right lighting and the right microphone and all these things they seem so trivial, but they are so important. So tell me, what are some of maybe the mistakes that you see people making when they're first starting out and doing these kind of videos and customer virtual meetings and stuff?
Sure. And I want to say, first of all, that yes, we've all been focused on the technology
Right.
aspects of being on video, and that is important, and that was certainly a natural place to start. But there's so much more. I mean, it's not all about the technology. You can have the right platform, you can be set up, good lighting, and you can still be terrible on camera.
Great point.
I'm sure you've
Yes.
seen people like that cannot connect on camera. It's like, it's a whole different skill set. So that's one thing, is mastering your environment, right?
Right.
Another
Absolutely.
thing, to learn how to really connect with somebody across technology.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a different set of skills. But in terms of challenges, I think, first of all, nobody likes how they look on camera. Like,
Right.
I've yet to meet someone that goes, you know what? I look pretty good.
Right. Right. Right.
We're all like, oh my God, I can't believe I look like that. I sound like that. And so
Right.
that's a big hurdle that salespeople have to get over. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just share with you a survey that I do of the companies and the teams that I work with before I work with them. I ask them what their biggest challenges are in terms of being on camera with customers. And what do you think the biggest challenge is?
Gosh, I would say, I mean, I know for me, one of the big challenges is even what I'm having right now, where I want to look at you, but I know I should look at the camera. So it's a big dichotomy of where do you go, and then you kind of feel
Yes,
weird about it.
yes,
Yeah.
bingo, you got it. How do I make eye contact? It's so
Yes.
unnatural, right? Our camera
Right.
is never where the other person's eyes are.
Right.
Even if you try and move their pictures around. And
Mm-hmm.
and this is why video works, because we are naturally drawn to human faces. So we
Right.
are just going to be, we're going to see that image and we're going to get hooked on it. And right now, it probably looks like I'm not talking to you. Does it, Katie?
It does. It does look like you're looking at down at something at your computer.
Notes, and I'm thinking, Katie, I really think this is a challenge that people, and you're like, what is she talking to somebody else? What the
Right,
heck?
right. Yes,
Um,
definitely.
so it's very important, and I think when you're on the receiving end of it, you realize that. So it's important to really work on understanding how to make eye contact with the camera
Right,
and understand that that is the lens through which your customer is going to see you and feel that you are paying attention to them.
right.
As awkward as it is, it's just a technique, it's a skill that you have to learn,
Yeah,
and I teach in my master course, which is looking at the camera. It's not unlike an actor who is maybe on a film set and they have to, they have a camera in their face and they
right,
have to just emote and have this whole dramatic conversation, and there's nobody else there,
right,
right?
right,
Um, so it can be done, right?
right.
It's possible, and you feel like as an audience member, you're like, oh God, they're just talking directly to me, right?
Right, right. Well, it feels so awkward. It almost feels like you're looking at somebody's eyebrows or their forehead. But it,
Right,
as you
right.
said, it does make, right now when we first started, when you were looking at me, it seemed like you were looking at me, but really I'm sure you were actually looking at your camera. So it works well.
Right, I am. But see, here's the thing: and this works for live virtual calls, if your customer has their camera on, and sometimes they don't have their camera on, so you have to work with that camera.
Right.
Uh, we have better peripheral vision than I think we realize. So even
Mhm.
when I'm looking at my camera, like I can see that you just nodded,
Oh,
and you blinked, and you moved your head. Um, you can see a lot of major movements and changes. So
uh-huh.
you can practice, like, using your peripheral vision, and you can also check body language every now and then. What you don't want to do is be doing this,
Right, right. That is hard.
or like you said, we get stuck, we get really into it, we get stuck looking at their face, and then we've lost that connection.
Right.
And
And I just want to point out, since this is a podcast, I am going to put this on my website and also on LinkedIn. But just so you know, what she did is she moved her eyes from the camera down over again, and it looked kind of awkward because she was looking up and down and up and down at me. So just in
yeah,
case you are listening.
it looks like somebody a little untrustworthy, like when somebody's moving their eyes around a lot, right?
Right.
So you want to really be able to focus on that camera, and again, check in with body language every once in a while, but have that be your main focus, because eye contact is one of the quickest ways to build a relationship with someone.
Right.
And relationship experts say you want to go for like 70% of the time making eye contact. So that doesn't mean you can't look away, you can't check your notes, you can't look up to get your thoughts together, but you do want to have that be your central point of focus.
Well, and just from a practicality standpoint, where would you recommend people get a webcam, or should they just use their laptop webcam? And if they do get a webcam, where should they put it to make this, be easier on them to do this technique?
Yeah, it just depends. I would say that most laptop webcams are not very good.
Hmm.
They are, and there's one brand, I can't remember what it is, where the camera is actually at the bottom of the screen, which is like,
Oh,
how do you
right,
do that, right?
right, right,
um, so I recommend a webcam, and you're just going to have to move it around depending on your setup, and once you have the people's images on the screen, you in Zoom or
right,
WebEx, you move those around as much as possible, but just get it so it's at eye level for you,
right,
so that it's a good natural range, as if you're sitting across from someone, and make sure that you're in what I call a medium close-up shot, which is kind of like where you and I are. It's like chest level or shoulder
right.
level up. You're not a floating head where it's just cutting you off with the neck, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You're not an extreme close-up where you're so close to the camera and it's a little aggressive for a customer. So making sure that you have the right distance between you and the camera. And yeah, it's going to depend on your setup, but you
Right,
have to just learn to work with that and have that be your go-to focus.
right, right. Okay, good. What else?
The other thing, well, while we're on eye contact, so I know you were brave enough to invite me to look at some of your
Yes.
videos,
Yes.
right?
Tell me. Uh-huh.
Yes, which were good. I mean, I love your creativity and
Thank
your
you.
messages, and you have a natural presence on camera, so
Well,
that's
thank
great.
you. Thank you.
Very conversational, and that's what we want. We don't want to, be stiff and formal, and we want ourselves to really shine on camera. The one thing I noticed in terms of eye contact, when you did some of your recordings, was it on your iPad or your
Some
phone?
was on my phone. Yes, some of it. And then
Okay,
some
your
of it's
phone.
on my, uh-huh.
Okay. So one thing to be aware when you're using the phone or the iPad is, where is the camera on that?
Hmm.
Because your eye contact is a little bit off. So it's
Okay.
not like directly, it's looking just to the side of who you're talking to. So it's not quite creating that one-on-one connection that we
Got it.
want. So,
Got it.
and it's hard to tell, especially on the phone, like where exactly,
Right.
pinpoint, but you have to be pretty precise. So figure out where that is, and you don't have to just stare at it, laser
Right.
focus, but know where that is and try to aim for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to go look, I told her to go out to my LinkedIn profile, and I had done a couple of videos recently. One of them was in my car, and I was talking about the new Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. And then I had a couple where I would actually did them in my house using my webcam. And then another one, I don't know if you saw that one, that was at the car dealership where I was talking
I
about
did.
asking questions. Good. So if you guys want to go look at those, you could probably see what she's talking about with the one that was in the car dealership and in my car was using my phone, and the others were using. So you might be able to tell a difference between using your webcam versus the phone. So that'd be a great one to go look at.
Right. The quality's fine. The setup, it's just that, being aware of where that camera is.
Right.
The other thing, and I'll talk about, and this is a challenge for a lot of people too. It's like, well, what do I do with my hands and my arms, and how do I move? And I work with a lot of people that are like, have been told to not gesture, to be
Oh.
still,
Uh-huh.
and which is it's not good advice, because
No.
if you're a gesturer, that's how you use your energy, and it supports what you're saying, and we don't want to, and it helps your personality come out, so we don't want to take that away. But you have to remember that this is your frame, right? Your frame
Right.
is kind of this narrow, small stage, and you want to try and keep your gestures within that frame. And what the camera likes is very specific, purposeful movement, not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fast, running
Right.
around. Especially if you have a green screen background, it's going to start to make
Oh,
you look like
sure.
a sci-fi character
Right.
moving around a lot.
Yes.
And what we're really trying to do is make the other person forget that we're on technology, right?
Right.
And make
Just out for coffee with a buddy.
yeah, just kind of recreate that face-to-face conversation as much as possible. So anything you do that reminds them that there's a huge distance between you, and this is technology based, just takes away from that connection.
Right.
And things like moving and suddenly realizing, you're gesturing over here, and it's like, well, I can't see your hand. We
Right.
keeping things just very specific, and using your gestures to support what you're saying.
Right.
So
Well, I think that's probably really important for men with long arms because they can get out of the frame probably very easily, or women
yeah,
too, but
real easy, yeah, and I spend a lot of time teaching presenters in live presentations to use the full range of
right,
what
right,
like, hey, small,
right, right.
So it feels awkward and unnatural, and of course it is. But once you just start to practice, get aware of the boundaries of your
Mm-hmm.
frame, and try and
Mm-hmm.
think about what you can do, what type of gestures you can use to support what you're saying. You can physicalize certain ideas, you can count, just even simple movements like that can really add context to what you're saying.
Right. Well, and I always recommend for my when people make cold calls that they record themselves so they can hear what they sound like. I would think that would be really important for this too. If you're giving a big customer presentation, to get on Zoom and do a quick recording and just see what you look like. I would think that would be really helpful.
Oh, absolutely. And I highly recommend that. Although it's one of those things that people know they should do, and it's the most painful
It is.
thing.
It is.
Even as an actor, I was like, no, I don't want to. because all you're going to see are your flaws and like, why
Right.
didn't I get my hair cut a different way?
Right. Right.
So I have some very specific advice on watching your recordings.
Oh, good. What would you say?
Well, for instance, in my course, I give people a self-evaluation form to just look at body language, just look at gestures, just look for these things, because we're just going to start going just very broad, like, oh, I look terrible. Like,
Right.
that's not helpful, right?
Right.
So what you want to do is just approach it like, as objectively as possible
Mm-hmm.
and be very specific. First of all, look for, what did you do well, right? What did
Mm-hmm.
you do well? Did you do pretty good job making eye contact? Were your gestures, supportive? Were they in the frame? Was your background, your lighting good? And then look for those specific things. And I recommend, looking at, eye contact, body language, movement. Certainly your messaging is a whole different area. So I wouldn't focus on that at the same time I'm working on my,
Sure.
soft skills, as it were, my connect and
Mm-hmm.
with the other audience. The energy, how was my energy? Did I bring, was it flat? Was my personality coming out? So looking at those specific areas and just picking like, one or two things to work on. Just go, okay,
Right.
so this week I'm going to work on making better eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
And then practicing, the time to practice is not when you're on a call with a customer,
Right. Right.
It's when you're on calls with your peers or your team or your friends. That's when you want to practice looking at the camera and moving within frame and trying out new things. Because what you want is these techniques just to become second nature so that you're not thinking about them when you're on with a customer. What you want to get to the point of being is totally internalizing the skills to communicate in this medium so that you can focus 100% on your customer.
Right. Right.
And not, what do I do with my hands and
Right.
how do I look? And, yes. So that's the goal.
Right. Well, and I think the background too makes a big difference, because what I've noticed is, you can do the virtual background, the green screen, which is really great, I think, for customer presentations because it's very clean. You could just have it be navy blue or whatever you want. But I have found that for this kind of thing, when you're really having a nice conversation, I think people feel more normal if they can see a little bit of your background. Do you feel like that too, when it's maybe in a more informal, just maybe a discovery call rather than a real customer presentation?
I totally agree. And, this is really unprecedented times. Like,
Right.
we have an opportunity to both go into our customer's home and
Right.
we have an opportunity to come into ours. And where would you, that's like, we would have dreamt for an opportunity like that back in the day, right?
Right.
So it's just an opportunity to connect deeper than you would have before. So
Right.
why not use that? And just, certainly if you have the setup to be able to do that, where it can be nice and neat and, supportive environment
Right.
as opposed to chaotic.
Right.
And I know some people that's not possible, and then a green
Right.
screen is your best option.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, and I would say your background should be simple. Again, it's a background. It's not a foreground, so it shouldn't
Right.
be like scene stealer. Like, I've seen some really fun backgrounds, but if I'm focused more on what's happening in your background than you,
Right.
that's
Right.
not a good thing.
Right. Now, so what would you think about my background now? I feel like it's a little busy.
A little bit, just because what's
Mm-hmm.
going on the dresser over there. So
Mm-hmm.
if you took a few things off there,
Right.
that would be okay.
Right. Okay. So if you're listening, make sure you get on my LinkedIn and connect with me there, so you can. I'll post a couple teaser videos so you can see my background. It is hard. I think you have to just make a decision of what's more important. You can either see this, or you can see a whole bunch of chaos in the background, or or a blank wall. Blank walls aren't that great either. So you got to kind of just take the good with the bad. I feel like a little bit when you do these. So
yes, nobody has a perfect setup, and
right.
and we're not looking for that. We're not going, wow, that's not a great setup. But most people aren't that judgmental. But what
Right.
we notice are things that really, what we don't want are those things that distract us.
Right.
I'll think about, if you looked at this picture, what would draw your attention? Well, I'm drawn to that vase or that urn in the back that has it's catching the lights, reflecting.
Right.
And that's what you don't want. You want the focus
Right.
to be on you.
Right.
So
Right.
and it's hard to objectively judge your own environment.
For sure.
People
Yes.
are used to looking at it. It's like, oh, it's not that cluttered. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, there's a little
Little bit.
clutter.
Right, right. Yes, I agree. All right, what else? What else would you say would be important things to think about?
Well, in terms of, showing up on camera, it really, some people have nerves around that. We had talked earlier about, you know, it, there's such an opportunity for salespeople that get on video now because not that many people are doing it,
Hmm.
surprisingly. And that's going to change because
Right.
people, more and more are doing it every day. So, I think the early adopters are the ones who are really going to be able to use it and stand out, and they're going to get better at it. So
And
nowadays,
and you don't necessarily mean just the meetings, because lots of people are having Zoom
oh,
meetings. You mean prospecting with that, or
yeah,
doing a
prospecting,
sales follow up. Absolutely, yes.
absolutely, using it throughout the sales process.
Hmm.
So taking advantage of that, and that brings up a whole nother area of anxiety, which is, doing these recordings. It's one thing to have a live customer conversation. Recording yourself is nerve wracking for a lot of people, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
Again, it's that talking to a black box. Um, so learning all these skills for live
Hmm.
conversations will help you with that. And then you also have to think about, how do you prepare for these things? Because
Right.
especially with prospecting, when you're sending videos, you have to grab their attention instantly,
Hmm.
right? And so you have to be performance ready. So it's just like an actor who, they don't like suddenly go into role. Like when they say action, it's like, oh, okay, they don't pop into it. They have been in role. They are warmed up. They've got the energy flowing. They're focused. So when that camera's on, you are ready to go.
Hmm.
You can't spend. I review a lot of people's videos, and a lot of times they don't get into really their good energy or good flow until about 30 seconds, maybe a
Oh,
minute in, and that's too long.
yeah, they've lost them by then, probably.
Yeah. So you gotta start, from the beginning. So to do that, I recommend, warming up. What that will do is that'll get your energy up, you know, shake it out. It'll release some of that negative tension that we get
Hmm.
when we're nervous and channel it into positive energy. In fact, I just posted a video about that, about some on LinkedIn, 2 ways to kind
Oh,
of
good.
channel that nervous energy, because you don't want to get rid of nerves entirely, because that is energy, and that
Hmm.
means you care and you're passionate about what you're talking about and who you're talking to and trying to help. So that's good, but too much of that energy, if you don't channel it right, can start to really tighten things up, and you can get very small and
Hmm.
tense, and you have to fight against that. And actors are always fighting against those nerves. Backstage, they're moving around, they're jumping in place, they're not sitting there just kind of waiting quietly to go on, right?
Right,
And
right.
you don't want those nerves to freeze, and then you're suddenly like, oh, what do I do with my hands? What
Right,
comes
right.
afterward?
Yes.
So
Well, and I think even the voice sometimes, especially if you're doing it first thing in the morning, sometimes you've got that little frog in your throat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yes, it's, and I know I've been guilty of this. There's mornings where I would get up and not say a word to anyone and get on a customer call,
Hmm.
right? And that's basically warming up on your customer.
Right, right.
So, there's no excuse for that. Like, this is our job, right? To communicate well, to
Right,
communicate at our best. So, yeah, so vocalizing is all part of that warm up and getting your energy up. So when you get on that call or you hit the button on the camera, you are in role, you're high energy, and it's like, hey, you're right in the flow.
right.
That's
Well, I think you're so right, because I've been doing a lot of videos lately myself as I'm trying to go out and get customers for my sales training business. And I just got an email this morning actually from a customer. I had never talked to him before. We had no mutual connections whatsoever, but I found them on LinkedIn. And he wrote me an email afterwards and said, we don't have any immediate needs, but your video really stood out. And I'd like to stay in touch because I'm sure we're going to have some training needs down the road. And I do think it is such a great way to really stand out. Because like you said, not that many people are doing it yet. I just made a little 1 minute long video where I made sure to mention his company and one thing I had learned about his company. And it really made a big difference to him.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great example. And here's the thing. I think many of us are concerned about being perfect, right?
Hmm.
Being so, and not making a mistake, not tripping over our words. not doing something weird.
Right.
and and nobody's looking at you with that level of detail, first
Right.
of all. The important thing is that you're connecting. You're
Hmm.
connecting, that you're passionate, that you use the medium well, yes, and you know the skills to work within it. But then you have to let go of some of that. It's got to be perfect.
Hmm.
It's better to get it out there, and get that message out there in the world than to keep striving for the perfect video.
Right, right. Well, and it's a time suck too. If you make the same video 10 times, then you've wasted how much time, 50 minutes on a video that you should have done in a minute or two. So,
Right, right. So you don't want to, yeah, you just don't want to drive it into the ground. There's no point in that.
yes, definitely. Well, I think this has been so helpful. Is there anything else that you can think of before we let you go that you want to make sure we know about?
I would just say, it's not a natural ability, so don't beat yourself up because you're not naturally good at it. So there are actual techniques and skills that you can learn, and just, like I said, take one thing at a time, practice it. If you're interested in more guidance on that, you can check out my Selling on Camera course at sellingoncamera.com. And yeah, and also on my blog, there's lots of good video posts on eye contact and body language, and you can pick some things up there as well. But
Right. And definitely follow her on LinkedIn because she's always posting really helpful videos. Well, I'm going to definitely check out that warm-up video you just posted. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's very helpful. So,
okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Julie. We really appreciate your time.
you bet. My pleasure.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone, to the Golden Rule of Selling podcast with Katie Mullen.